Welcome to another Power Half Hour with me, Paul Simmons, and my amazing guest. I am so fortunate to have him today. I reached out to him kind of randomly. I saw the amazing things that he's doing in the travel and fitness and lifestyle, beauty industry. Brian Chappon is doing things in a unique way and really allowing people to travel. I know we've been in just a crazy time period in our lives right now with the pandemic and everything. So I really want to ask him how he's able to deal with everything that's been going on surrounding the pandemic and what that looks like for his business and what he's doing to, stay on top of what he's doing. So anyway, if you are here live, please type in hashtag live in the comments. And if you are here for the replay, please type in hashtag replay. And again, if you have any questions throughout this conversation, throw them down in the comment section. We'll love to answer them, and we'll get back to you. So if you are here for the replay, if you're here live, type away, man. We'd love to include some questions you may have in real time. But without further ado, let me introduce my guest this afternoon, Mr. Brian Chappon.
Love
The
it.
crowd goes wild. Yes, sir. What's up,
Love
sir?
it. Hey, what's up? Thanks,
Ah,
Paul.
no, thank you, man. I appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule to, you know, chat with me and us so we could learn more about the amazing things that you guys are doing at Centered. And am I saying it right?
Yeah, yeah,
Centered, right?
awesome.
Obviously.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
But you put a little twist on it with the spelling. I love it.
Yeah, that's for branding. We
Of
just like
course.
it.
Of course,
It
man.
was just living in the UK for 7 years, and we were like, oh, I like that better. That makes more sense.
Absolutely. And that's funny you say that because I did a little research on you, and a lot of your uh, information still says UK on it.
Yeah.
Kind of, if you can, tell us about your business, what it is that you do, and maybe tell us how you ended up in the UK. I know you're not there
Yeah.
now. I know you're not there
Yeah,
now, but
yeah, that's a whole story too. Yeah,
right,
I'll
yeah,
try to get that in there as well. But
sure.
yeah, so I like to say centered is 22 years of my entrepreneurial failures, all coming into a really cool thing, because it was not an overnight type of you know story of success by any means. It's quite the opposite. So, but I was an athlete at one point, a long time ago, and always kind of as you get out of being an athlete, you lose that discipline of consistency.
What sport? What
And
sport were you in?
track and field, I was a pole vaulter, and I played
Nice.
volleyball, played beach volleyball as well. So it's kind of you're so used to having structure, and then you go out into the real world and realize, yeah, the discipline's on you now, and then I got into traveling, and man, the discipline to try to travel and stay healthy was like almost impossible. Jet lag and time zones and unhealthy food and just not having the ability to be disciplined in that. And so I was I won't bore you guys all with my whole story, but I had some serious burnout. And back when the '08 crisis happened, I was in my late 20s and pretty much got my shirt taken, lost everything. I like to say my life was like a country song. It was like lost the house, the wife,
Mm,
the dog, and was sleeping in a 24-hour Starbucks within a year.
wow.
So it was brutal. And but again, I look back on that. I was back in '08, '09. It was a long process of recovery, so to speak. But that's actually kind of where Centered came from. Um, I ended up jumping into teaching spin classes and trying to mentally just approach like an event in sports, mentally approach life that way. It kind of went back to my roots and the discipline, how you train for a meet or for a game. And that's actually what got me through it. I would go to a spin class, sit in the back room, and cry my balls out. And it literally was like that. It sounds cheesy, but I needed that outlet. That was like my sanctuary. And the idea of changing the travel experience happened because before my first burnout, and I've had a few, I was traveling from the Middle East to Asia to all over the world for work. And again, just trying to stay consistent with my health was almost impossible. I couldn't figure it out. And I knew it started with me. So, I had to own up to that and take some discipline there and start eating healthy and doing all the stuff that I used to do. But then how could I make it more accessible? And so we originally started another company where we were actually trying to create wellness spaces at airports. And in theory, it was great. It was a great concept, but airports weren't quite ready for us. They're very difficult to deal with. So the barrier of entry was super high. We had to go raise an enormous amount of capital. And if we had done that business, it would have taken us 20 years to probably build 12 lounges. So you just couldn't scale the business. And so I got lucky in some ways because that's actually, I was thinking a lot about how we make a digital experience happen, where you could have almost, instead of taking the anxiety of having to do a Google search when you go to a city like Hong Kong or London or Seattle. And because I traveled all over, I kind of knew where a great yoga studio would be, or a place to get a juice bar, or a place to stay. And actually that out of that, my own personal experience, I started finding a lot of my like-minded friends of mine who became teammates of Centered, all felt the same way. We kind of knew where to go. It was kind of like where to go when you're in Paris, where to go, and it wasn't being through a conflict of interest to travel experts who get paid for advertising. So for us, it's actually, hey, I can tell you where not to go because they're paying TripAdvisor to put that on there. So organically, that centered idea came from that. I couldn't get traction right away because my previous investors were really going in a different direction with the airport business. And I guess time and luck, in some ways, COVID happened and the business just got wiped for various reasons. It was partly a struggle of culture and vision, and partly COVID. And so we luckily walked away from that. And you're like, okay, we're resetting, but I parallel said, okay, centered is the focus, is the future, and that's actually what we are. And what we are is basically a wellness concierge for travel. And you would have on your credit card, for Chase, for example, access to airport lounge. But why can't we take that and extend that further into your journey? Or you'd have access to Barry's boot camps, to spin cycle classes, to wellness hotels, to culinary experiences that are all focused on your health. And then we had the idea through our own telehealth company to integrate telehealth 24 hours a day into that user journey. And that's really what Centered is. It's one efficient app that has all that in one place. So it's been quite the journey. And then we did all that in the middle of COVID. So that's been the crazy part. We literally onboarded our favorite wellness hotels. We acquired a couple different companies that were in the travel space that needed our help because of COVID, literally because travel went to zero. These guys were booking travel to doing 4 or 5 million pounds a year in business to doing nothing, and then had to pay back all those, all their people who made trips. In the hotel industry, didn't step in and pay that back. So it was brutal. It was just a brutal bloodbath the last year and a half. And so it's been a cool journey because we've been able to kind of support some companies that are in the travel space that really struggled, and then bring a broader experience where not only could you book a wellness hotel with us that's handpicked by us, but you could have a yoga experience, you could have a HIIT class, and then you could find out what's going on and really travel deeper. Because you see all these magazines and all these people talk about traveling deeper and being inspired. But I'm like, but I'm a doer. I'm like, how?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how to travel deeper. I don't understand it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that branding. I'm like, that sounds all nice, but how do you? For me, traveling deeper is knowing to go on a run with a local. To like hang out with Paul in Denver. Like you show me a great trail run or a great yoga studio that you go to. To me, that's traveling deeper. And so it's simplistic form. That's what Centered is. We just handpicked our favorite suppliers and brands, and we want to tell their story. It's not really about the Centered story. It's about our brand story. For us, it's great if, people know about Centered because we want you to use the app, but it's truly about our brand story around the world. And I think right now, my marketing people might get mad at me. I think we're at 900 some cities around the world that we have experiences at. And what we try to do is not make it overwhelming. So we're not going to load you up like ClassPass does with thousands of gyms and studios, and we're going to handpick maybe 20 or 30 per city, or per destination that might be more like resort focus. So that's quickly what we are.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Holy cow. Like, you said the telehealth. Can you explain to me what that is?
Yeah, so that's a whole story in itself. But we started doing beta testing with a few primary care physicians out in Seattle. Actually, they had about 6,000 patients before COVID that were traveling, and they were a little bit. Most of them were 55 plus. They had some health concerns about what happens if I run out of medications in Italy and they don't have that medication, because in some countries, like Ritalin or something, is illegal. And so what do you do? Is there certain, same as like ibuprofen, or what if you have a serious event crisis where you break your leg in the middle of nowhere? And so our team had been, in our team of physicians, we've got about 15 PAs and nurse practitioners that work for us full time that are just experts by region, speak different languages, can handle and license here in the US and UK. And I think that's what's really unique about us. So we're what we call more of a bespoke telehealth service, where we handle clients that have serious, we've done stuff with like the BBC reporters who've been stuck in different circumstances, stuff like that. And what we really wanted to say is bringing your health and wellness in your pocket. So like we're about to announce that actually Center is being acquired the next month. And it's really more of a merger between two good companies, because they do really cool tech and telehealth, and we have more of the service side of telehealth. So it's just a perfect marriage for the two of our companies to come together and hopefully really change the consumer experience, both within your primary care and then onto your journey. So from state to state, as you know, like there's repatriation issues that happen when, you might have Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield in Denver, but then you go to New York and you break your leg. What do you do? Your insurance cost goes up. So if you have all your medical records in one place, that's HIPAA compliant and that you can show that doctor that might be in the ER. No one's doing that. So that's one of the things that we're doing.
Wow.
That's a better consumer experience. So we're just so pumped about that. And then
Man.
of course, globally too. So you might be in a country where they don't speak the language. You could use our app, and the app will actually change to the language, almost every language in the world. So if you're in a Spanish speaking country and you break a leg, that doctor there has your medical records and they can see your history. Because how do you really treat someone in a crisis if you don't see your history? It's very difficult, especially when you're on different pain meds or type of medications that are important. So for us, it's bringing peace of mind coming out of the pandemic, whether if you have pre-existing conditions or you might be afraid. Some people are paralyzed. They don't even want to travel even before the pandemic just because they're tied to some type of, agony in their health. And so what we want to do is be able to inspire them that they have the peace of mind to get on the road again as we get out of this pandemic in the next couple of years. And so really centered we believe the brand is positioned as a peace of mind for travel. And so you can call us 24 hours a day, and you're also tied to your own primary care physician at home. And so it's just that connecting those dots that just makes us a little bit unique as a company. And it goes back to just changing the consumer journey when you travel.
Dude, that's incredible. That's crazy. So you just kind of blew my mind right now. Um, how did how did you come across your team? I know you said, are these just people? Like, how did you build your team? And I'm asking you this from, you know, you're a founder and a CEO, right? So obviously you have relationships with the people on your team. Was there anybody that you had to hire outside of your personal knowledge? What was
You
that
know
like?
what? Yeah, that's a great question. We really preach culture, but saying culture and doing culture are two different things, right? And I don't think you can force culture. We've had that conflict already with some certain team members. You can't force culture. It has to grow organically. And then it starts from the onboarding that person. And for us, I think coming back to my sports days, I always was part of a team. So, it's in the same in life and relationships, it's all about good communication. And understanding personal conflict and how to deal with conflict and getting it out on the table, right? All of those things that we as CEOs and owners of business have to deal with. And I was the worst in my early days of dealing with conflict, hated it. I just ignore it. And then it blows up in your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, we end up implementing what's called EOS. It's an entrepreneurial onboarding system that is based on a book Traction. And I could share a link later about it, but I end up finally realizing I needed to hire a coach for my ADD personality. And so when I did that, he was an expert in EOS, and now he's actually our COO. Colin's now our COO. And what it does for guys like us that might be a little bit ADD, kind of handling, I think we can multitask, even though we can't. It helps us organize our business process and where to fill those seats to create a great team and really think through that job description. So instead of just throwing paint on a wall, you actually are very clear of what your vision traction organizer is and what your goals are as a business and really nailing that down. And I think this is the first business that I've done with EOS, and it's life-changing. And so to go back to your question, for us to find a team, it really came back to, no one on our team except for our creative director. I'd known him for years. Ely, he's like one of my best friends, but outside of that, it's all people that I've met in the last couple of years. Actually,
Wow.
most of the team we've met during COVID and just recently finally got face-to-face meetings because we could travel. So my head of marketing, she's got an amazing story on LinkedIn already where we had tried to hire her in the old days, in the airport days. And she was too cool and busy for us, which is true. She was way cooler than I am. So it's,
That
and she's like one of those influencer people in the marketing
that's I'm
world.
so glad you said that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that is so important when running a business. You have to hire people that are better than you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not an
Yeah.
ego thing. Like, if you want to be successful, you better hire people that are better than you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or at
Totally.
least better at the things that you don't like to do, for
It's
sure.
that nail on the head. I think it's hiring people that you don't like to do so that they love. So I said today in we do a Wednesday weekly call with our team. And I say it's the 80-20 rule. You need to 80% love what you do and 20% learn the discipline of doing what you don't like to do. But you can't reverse it. And if you have someone that's doing 80-20 the other way, it's a disaster. And that goes for me and everybody else on the team. 80% of what we do, we must love. 20%, we got to be disciplined to, figure it out. And if you do that, I think you're going to have a really good team and some success in your business. And I've learned that the hard way. Mostly for myself, because it's like you have to find your own why first, right? You got to go deep, look down deep, find what is your purpose and why are you doing this business? I never was in business to make money. I didn't care. I was there to try to make an impact, and in to do that, money will follow and success will follow, of course. But for me, it's like, how do we make a global impact, especially in global health? For us, that's our passion as a team. And then what happens, I think it's addictive once you start finding what that why is and implementing that into your vision. They just come. The team just come. People just are attracted to that energy. And I think what's been so cool, we're now up to, I think, 14 people on our team. All of us are global. I'm currently in Fort Lauderdale right now because I got stuck here during Christmas when they locked down the UK again, and decided, forget it, I'm just going to stay. And then Sarah, head of marketing, is between Florida and Connecticut. Ely's in New York. And then we have a team in London, in South Africa, in Dubai, in Delhi, India, in APAC, in Shanghai. I mean, just we're all spread out. So how do you, and it all came through us networking and being, they just were attracted to our vision. And it's just amazing. I think the thing that gets me most excited about Centered is besides the app itself, that's really fun. It's just the team. It's just, it's fun to show up. I hate to say go to work, because we don't really go to work anymore, but show up on the go to work Zoom calls,
Right.
and do that. So it's, I highly recommend EOS. I can share with you later, so you can send to your followers in your community and what it is.
Sure.
But for me, it's been life changing.
That's amazing, man. Obviously, you're big on team, right? Obviously, with your background, did you ever envision yourself being a business owner? Is that something that just kind of happened, or was it something that you always knew that you wanted to do? You always wanted
No,
something in business.
I don't get all cheesy on it, but I fought it. I didn't want to be in business. Sometimes in life you're just destined and made, the higher powers want you to do something, and you don't want to do it. And for me, I didn't want that title of being a business owner. It was before entrepreneur became a cool word. And I think you're right. This is
Yes.
22 years ago,
Yes,
right?
man. Me too.
Yeah,
So I always
right.
thought of business as
Ugh.
a cubicle,
Yeah,
a button-up shirt, and 9 to 5, go home, miserable,
yeah,
do it again. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
how I looked at entrepreneurship.
yeah,
Boy, was I wrong. Thank God. Like, look, we're wearing hats and we're
yeah.
in
Exactly.
V-neck T-shirts, and
Yeah,
still able to do our and be yourself, right? Like I think
yeah,
that is one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur. You get to make your own rules, right? You get to run your business the way you want to run it. Now there are fundamental rules that you must follow. Obviously, customer satisfaction, or else you won't
yeah,
have a business. You have to
yeah,
make money, right? Or you won't have a
yeah.
business. What is something that surprised you about being an entrepreneur that you didn't expect?
Well, I looked at, I'll answer that in two ways. I looked at it because my dad was a solo entrepreneur. I just watched him struggle. So for me, that I didn't want to do that. I just watched our family be poor and struggle, and it was just a fight for everything he did, and he wasn't fulfilled. So for me, I think I had a bad taste in my mouth because I was watching one person's experience, which is not the same for everybody. So I had to get over that, and then get over that fear of like that. Okay, well, it might have been that way for him. It doesn't have to be that way for me, which
Mm-hmm.
is a generational thing we had to break, right? Like, it really is. And that's a whole other conversation we could have about that. But so that was one. And then I think two is, once you dive in, you got to fully dive in. Like, I'm an all or nothing personality. It's in anything in my life, I'm either 100% into something, I'm not at all. And so once you got to make that decision, you got to dive in, and it's not going to be pretty. I think this whole idea of this younger generation that's a little bit more entitled, that think that things are just going to be handed to them. That entrepreneurship is the opposite of that. Nothing's handed to you. It's brutal at times, it's painful at times, but it's so rewarding at the same time. And I think for me, I like to say, with my first failure, and I've had quite a few, my first business failure, I learned something that's been valuable, especially about team, and really my purpose was, when things are going great, you're everybody's hero. And I didn't realize how much of a people pleaser I was, right? I was just like the hero. I was paying everybody good salaries, and their parents loved me. I'm talking to my late 20s, and look at me, good. That to me was, I was fulfilled in an arrogant way of thinking, look at me. I've wasn't that I was making a ton of money. It was just that I was in an arrogant way providing a career for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how egotistic that was. And then when shit hit the fan, I was a villain.
Right. And you did
Whereas,
not, and being
yeah,
a people pleaser, that's
yeah,
devastating, right?
devastating. I was
Oh,
devastated. It was my first time, and that's actually when I say my life was a country song. It was the first time where I hired friends. Terrible idea. No one's going to understand you as an entrepreneur, and it's, don't expect your team to completely understand who you are as an entrepreneur. That takes time and trust. But I had hired people I've known since teenage years. Is a terrible idea, and in so many ways. And so I think, but it was about ego for me, and I had to break that ego. Not ego at the time because I was thought I was doing the right thing, and ego in the sense that like I had to like forgive myself and move on because it was a crater of experience for me. Becoming a villain, I hated it. I didn't realize how much I hated. And the fact of life is being an entrepreneur, you're gonna fail.
you
It's the
have
question of
to.
what, yeah, and I cherish it now. Those times where I was literally in New York, I was like, New York's not going to beat me. I was living in New York all that time. I was like, I could move back to my parents in my late 20s, early 30s, or I could just stick it out here at a 24-hour Starbucks and figure it out. And at the time too, is you're not prophetic all the time. Like I think where people like blamed me was like, how dare you keep us on when you thought you were going to bail us out financially? I'm like, that's your own issue. And so when I finally got over that to say these people are just a bunch of kids and they're childish and that expectation of let Brian bail you out, they just weren't taking their own ownership. And so it's taken me years to get over that and go, you know what? We're all responsible adults here. Being an entrepreneurship, working for a startup, it's bloody sometimes. And I think I always say that when we hire people, going back to team, I give them my storyline of all the scars I've got. I mean, listen, you're gonna come work for us. Sometimes you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. It's
I
like,
mean, with the pandemic and everything, like how did your team react to that? I know you said most of it's been formed since the pandemic,
mhm.
but what was,
yeah. I think it was funny. Someone asked me that the other day. I think we didn't even look at it as an issue. We looked at it as an opportunity. I was like, wait a minute. Centered is perfectly positioned to be that peace of mind for people to go back in. Because I look at VCs didn't look at it that way. I think I got rejected by every single VC when we were raising money last year. And either I'm a terrible salesman or God knows. So,
they just didn't
who
see the
knows?
vision, man. They didn't see
No,
it.
they didn't see it. They didn't see it because the word travel. That's all. No, I'm not going to touch travel right now. And the argument is like, well, we'll just wait till travel rebounds and then we'll invest in when it's stable. And I'm thinking, you guys, we've never been in a position where an industry, and there's not one in the US besides hospitality and travel that went to zero. So that tells me one thing. That's a positive, not a negative. If you look at, I'm an internal optimist, so I look at it that way. We've never had an industry went from zero. What does that mean? We're going to get at least a 10x, 20x return over the next 3 years. Even if it's 3 years, even if we didn't get into traveling until the end of 2022 into 23, the growth is unheard of because no industry, not even the fitness industry, did that. Fitness pivoted over to online content, and so they still figured out a way to make some money, not a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
Travel was zero. So for us, like as a team, we're like, this is the opportunity to build our platform, to build our tech, to create the consumer journey, and then get this ready to go for coming out of the pandemic. And I think it's because we looked at it that way. I say we're first, as I say, first is the bad word. We're one of the first products out there, to my knowledge, that is able to recover. And I don't say that even we're recover, but get out there and get it to the market. Now we're a B2B marketplace, so you have to be through your employer or through your credit card to have the centered experience. But well, that makes us very unique. But it's changing the loyalty game in so many different ways. So credit card companies that we work with, all these people just they didn't really get what wellness was before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden they're going, okay, we know we need it, but how? And we're that how because of the pandemic. Like, let me show you how you can earn ROI and you can, more importantly, earn loyalty within your business. And so for us, that's where it's perfect timing.
That's beautiful, man. So it's going to get a little dark right now. What is something that, frightens you in your business? And what do you do?
Everything.
Everything frightens. What do you let me rephrase that. What's one thing that has you concerned, but you are ready to overcome, accept the challenge, step up to whatever, however you want to.
Well, I think you have to be real. I think anytime you do business like this, all the other big boys out there that are bigger than you, have tons of capital behind them, are going to follow you and try to copy you. And that's already happened. We saw a post the other day in APAC. We were laughing. It was literally they took our playbook and they're trying to do it in Singapore. That's going to happen. That can frighten you, and it does, because your emotions are going to come first every time. You just have to put those in check and get okay. But what do we do that is better? And I think and that's what we're joking with our team is like we know how to make it better and make the user journey better. It still frightens you because again, we're not a big capital business. We didn't go raise $50 million. Money isn't always the answer. It's quick to market that's the answer, but you're still competing. And so we're competing in many different sectors, in the beauty industry, in the fitness industry, in the travel industry, and in the healthcare industry. We have four major industries that we are all in one app. And so you're going to get pieces of competition. And then some people are going to go with lots of capital, go, okay, we're just going to copy what Sensor is doing and try to do that for our customers. And listen, I take that as a compliment. So like, okay, yeah, but then we still got to compete with them. So that's what keeps you up at night going, okay, how can we be better? How can we be first to market and last sustainability, right? Like why we want people to feel, like you said earlier, customer satisfaction is everything. I heard the great Horst Schultz, who's the guy that was the chairman of Ritz-Carlton for many, many years. And he has a great podcast on keeping customer satisfaction. I've always implemented that into my team and into my culture. And it's just, you have to win over the customer, and repeat business is the key. So, I think other competitors for us have not learned that, partly for just various reasons. They've either pissed off their suppliers and pissed off their consumers all at the same time. So I think if we continue to do which is our values, is to really serve the consumer, then we're going to get it right.
That's awesome, man. Let me see. I think I heard some. We've got some comments here. I just wanted to see if there are any questions. Hate conflict. Alicia Donaldson, pleasure. Thank you for joining. She said the following part of entrepreneurship is scary. It's challenging because it has made me question my product service, and has made corporate seem more stable, which I know is false security. Yeah, Alicia is starting her business. She's actually in Fort Lauderdale. She has a really cool concept, like a field day. It's a field day where couples participate in activities and all that. She's
Cool.
originally from Colorado, but she lives in Fort Lauderdale now. But yeah, absolutely. That the fear of wanting to go to the security blanket of that corporate space, right? If you've had a job, and that security is nice, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But like you had mentioned earlier, man, going out on your own, you do have to fall back on things that you've experienced in the past. You with the athletic, me also, I had a background in athletics. I played college football, and I was also in the Marine Corps. So tapping into those things that I know I can push myself harder is huge. But for people that don't have never had that, they
Yeah.
gotta draw on something else. And my point is, stick with it. Like it's agony and it's ecstasy. There's great moments when someone buys into what you're providing. It's beautiful, right? And then you get that person that's like, I don't like that. It kills you because this
Yeah.
is your heart and your soul. And speaking of heart and soul, my one word is more. I want to provide more value to my clients. I want to do more. I feel like I can always do more. What's something that you want more of?
Boy, that's a deep question. I love it.
I know.
Um, there's so many things. I mean, I think more for me personally would just be um, making a better impact. Like for us, like I said earlier, our vision is to change global healthcare. Um, I think we're just getting started. Like we're not anywhere clearly anywhere where we want to be. And so for me, it's an everyday mission. You just chew on it every day. Like you're not going to tackle a giant overnight. That happens sometimes, but for the most part, it's just being consistent, So for me, the more is just to make an impact. And I think if we do that, then I'll feel, that's fulfillment, but also enjoying the moment. I think for me is I was really bad at enjoying the moment in my past. I was always looking for the next thing. And I think one thing I've learned through tons of failure is just to embrace the moment and embrace that part of the journey. And I look back at those times where I've, been homeless and
Mm.
really had people hating me and, you know, all types of different conflict. And I cherish that because it's, for me, it's made me a better person. It gives me more character, more integrity. And it wasn't perfect, made a lot of big mistakes. And I had to say, you have to embrace all that, and then so that you come to where you are, and you never arrive. So for me, more is just staying in the moment, because I wasn't very good at that, and so I think and it's a daily discipline to stay in the moment. So for me to have more is to stay in the moment, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, man. Now, never,
Yeah.
or excuse me, now, NOW, no
Mhm.
opportunities wasted, man.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
awesome. What I want to do, I know we're at that time. I apologize for keeping you longer. I've been doing that lately, and I need to check myself for keeping my guests longer than the power half hour. But we don't have any regulations, so we can do what we want to do, right? But I did want to show people, your website. Let's see if we can pop that in here. This is your LinkedIn. Brian is on LinkedIn, and this is where I see London, England. You're not there anymore. You are back in the States due to
Yeah.
COVID reasons. This is the website centered. You can see the team. These amazing partnerships. Your team, like I said, yeah, check them out, man. Do the research. If you're planning a trip,
Yeah, we'll give you a code. I'll send you a link to our code. So if anybody's listening, if you want to check out the website, you have to have a code to make bookings and stuff. And then actually exciting, we'll be actually in the App Store. Most of our integrations are with credit cards, so we didn't need to be in the App Store, but we are going to be in the App Store next week. So we'll send you guys a link you can just put in the code and you can feel free to use it. It's on us.
oh
So
man, that's awesome. Awesome,
yeah,
Brian, man.
yeah.
Holy cow. Well, again, man, I do want to do this again. I want to say, if you're open to it, man, I'd love to have you as a guest again.
Anytime.
Um,
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Half hour goes so quick, man, and
I know.
there was a lot more questions I wanted to ask you pertaining to business, but hopefully we can talk about those next time, if
Yeah,
you
let's
can
do
make
it.
time again to hang
Yeah,
out with me.
let's do it.
Do you have any questions for me?
Um, let's do it on part two. Um, let's do it on part two. That way we can flow that way.
Perfect, man. Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. So, without further ado, man, I'll let you continue to run your empire, and I look forward to seeing where you are next time we chat. And thank you all for joining us today on the Power Half Hour with me, Paul Simmons, and my amazing guest, Mr. Brian Chappon. Yeah, I can't wait to see you guys again next week between the hours of 12 and 2. I don't know. We got to find out what time my guest will be here. So be on the lookout for that invitation to come join us for the Power Half Hour. I'm Paul Simmons. Thank you again. Brian, thank you so much, man, for your
You're
time.
welcome.
And we're out.
Bye, all.